Okay, so we're going to learn how to make some of your art projects or your graphics projects a little more interactive. That is, having users be able to click and have something happen. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but there are a million different ways to do this. Just, use your imagination. So we're going to use the random function, which I really like, to create some interesting effects and to randomize what happens when people are interacting with your art. But basically, the graphics part of this is pretty easy. So first of all, I have set up here a window, of course, as we always do when we're using graphics. And then I have a while true loop, so this is just going to go on forever. You could change this if you want and make it, you could use repeat and repeat only a few times or whatever, entirely up to you. And then within this is sort of the main part of the program. So we're going to start by using random to choose a radius for our circle. So if you remember, random is under statements, and we have result equals random. So I'm setting our radius to be somewhere between 20 and 50. This could be, we could reset this to 10. You don't want to be 0. And you probably, well, we could go bigger than that, I guess. Let's try it. So we can make this, anything. And so that's going to pick a radius for it. Every time this goes through, it's going to reset this to something different. And then this is a new function. And this is under Windows. And it's called Get Mouse. And what it does is when someone clicks on the screen, it gets the coordinates of that mouse click. And what I've done here, if you'll see, I did something really weird. I have two variables here, x, comma, y. And if you remember, we typically refer to our coordinates of any point as x and y coordinates. And so what this does is it gets the coordinates of your mouse click, and it assigns the x coordinate to x and the y coordinate to y. And then down here in my circle, where we would normally put numbers in here, in both of these places, what I've done is I've used those XY coordinates to, from the mouse click, to set the center point of our circle. And then I've used the radius that we got from the random statement, so it'll be randomly a different size every time. So what this little section does is it gets a random radius, it gets a mouse click, and then it makes a circle at the place where the person clicked their mouse. So that's pretty cool. Then I wanted to randomize the color. So to do that, I actually used a make color thing that I don't think we've actually used yet. So under pictures, there's this make color RGBA. And what these things stand for is red, green, blue, and alpha. So any color that you make is made up of red, green, and blue of different levels. And then alpha is for your transparency. An alpha of 0 means that it would be completely invisible. And alpha of 255 means it would be completely opaque or solid. So what I did above this is I set all of these things to random values so that I get a random color every time. So I set and I just used the same ARGB so that I knew exactly what these were. So my alpha is set from, I didn't want to be completely invisible, so I made it about 50, which is pretty transparent. And then the maximum of all of these is 255. So I have R set to be 0 to 255, because you could have something that's just green and blue mixed together, which is, I think, sort of brownish. And then green is 0 to 255, and blue is 0 to 255. So every time it will generate a different color. And then I've set the color of my circle to whatever color gets generated here. And then, of course, we draw our circle onto the window. So let's take a look at how that works. So it's waiting for me to click. So I'm going to click here in the middle. And then you can see that it creates a very pale blue circle. I'm going to click over here. And now it's gray. And so you can click all over the screen and see what happens. Pretty fun. And you could create a different shape every time or create multiple shapes at once. It's entirely up to you as to what you do, but this is a fun way to use the random function. Okay, I have another example that is just slightly different and looks kind of a little more interesting. So I'm going to take this get mouse out and I'm going to put in this get mouse now. And this is a little bit different, and really the only difference is it doesn't wait for you to click. It just goes. And actually that last program was going really slow, so I'm going to drag this over. This is makes your program go faster or slower, depending. So I'm going to make this go really fast because it looks cool when it's going fast. So what this will do is it'll just trace the movement of the mouse around the screen. I don't have to click in order for a circle to be drawn. It's just going to figure out where my mouse is at that very moment, whether I've clicked or not, and draw a circle. So let's see the effect of that. Okay, so let's see what this does. And you can see that I'm just moving my mouse around the screen and it's drawing circles over and over and over again, and that's kind of cool looking. Creates sort of a kaleidoscope effect. All right, let's close that. Okay, so that you might want to add a little something to that. Maybe that's drawing a little too quickly for you. There's actually a weight in here. So what you could do is put in a little bit of a weight after the circle is drawn before it gets its information for the next circle. You could put 0.25 in here. You can change that's quarter of a second. You can put a number of seconds, but I think seconds would be too long. So let's see the effect of that. So that gives us a little bit different effect. It's waiting a little bit before it draws the circle, so it's not so, crazy. That looks pretty cool. You could wait even longer or something like that, but that's one pretty interesting sort of artistic effect. I'm going to show you one other one. And this one works fairly similarly. It just uses lines and curves instead of the circles, so it gives a completely different effect. And you'll see that I've used the weight in here as well. Let me take, in fact, this first part I'm going to take out, and we're going to put a different part in here. So just like with the first circle option, what we have here is a line is made up of 2 points. So I click to get my first point, and then I click again to get my second point, and then it makes a line out of those points. And so I'm using the get mouse again. Once again, I've set my colors to be random, and I need to change this because we're setting the color of the line, not the curve. So we'll change that, and then we should get an interesting effect. So let's try it. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to click again, and it drew a line, and another line. And this might be interesting. I could see doing something like creating a dot to dot. So you put the dots on here, and then you have the person click, and you don't even have to worry about keeping track of where the dots are. You just have the person click on the dots, and it creates a picture. So that would be kind of cool. So this isn't all that exciting. You can use the get mouse now if you want, and that would work. But I'm going to change this line thing to be a curve, which is what I had just a minute ago. And we'll show you that option. I'm going to make this go fast. So we're going to stick that in there. And instead of making a line, we're going to make a curve. Now a curve, I think I mentioned in another video but didn't exactly go over, a curve has 4 points. So let me drag this up so you can see. This is the start point, this is the end point, and then these are the points in the middle. Now if you were trying to make a very specific kind of curve, of course you would want to figure out where those points should be. But since we're doing things randomly, it doesn't really matter. Let's reset our setting of color and our drawing back to curve from line. So what this does is create some curves, and actually the way that the fill works, it kind of fills in the curves in a really interesting way. So let's look at this. So let's look at how this works. Make this fast, run our script. So I'm just, once again, like I did with the circles, I'm just sort of moving my mouse around the screen, and it creates these really interesting curves and kind of fills them in, which is the fun part of this. And you'll notice that if you look at this program here, I put in these weights between them because otherwise it looks really, really weird. It doesn't give it enough time to collect all 4 of those points, and it just kind of stays in one place. But you can play around with that and see if that's something you want. And that weight is under miscellaneous. It's under graphics miscellaneous, so it will pause between each of them. So those are just some interesting things that you could do to make your graphics interactive. I'm going to show you a couple of other things in the next videos involving keys and mouse clicks, so that you can add them. You can make interactive art, or you can add them to make an interactive animation. So just use your imagination. These get mouse and get mouse nows can be used to move your characters around the screen, or used to draw things on the screen. However you want to make use of those, they're really quite useful.